Right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Melanie Sanderson, Managing Editor of the Good Schools Guide, and I'm joined here by Alexandra Haydon, who's Head of Francis Holland School, and Susan Wijeratna, who's the head at Latymer Upper School. And of course, you all know that in London we are blessed with some of the greatest schools in the world, and indeed schools that produce some very, very high academic achievements. So today we're going to look at whether those schools are suitable for every child and the traits that are really necessary to thrive in these very high-octane environments. So, Alex, I don't know if you would like to kick off by talking to us a little bit about Francis Holland.
Yeah, so I'm head of Francis Holland Sloane Square, which is in the heart of Belgravia, really. It's a 2-minute walk from Sloane Square tube station. And from the outside, it looks like sort of residential buildings in a way, I mean, a bit more school-like. But in the inside, people sort of almost describe it like a TARDIS. It's got all these, it gets bigger and bigger as you go in. And we've got a netball court there that provides some space for the girls to get out and about. We've got an amazing sixth form centre. And really, we were founded in 1881 by the wonderful Canon Francis Holland, who, but actually it was more his wife, who was really interested in pioneering for girls' education. And we've got a Christian values, Christian ethos of love, of humility, of compassion, but we welcome girls from all backgrounds, and it really is about finding those girls and those, giving them the opportunity to become what we say, the leaders, the innovators, the game changers of tomorrow, and giving them that confidence to go out into the world and do something different. So we say, Francis Holland, be the difference, as our kind of what we Wonderful. Say to the girls.
Thank you. Sue, would you like to tell us a bit about Latymer Upper?
Yeah, I think TARDIS is a good word for any London school, actually. You often find that. So we are based in Hammersmith. Our main frontage of the school is on King Street, which is the main road that runs through Hammersmith. But again, that TARDIS feel is you go in and it goes on and on and on. And then actually, unusually as a school, we have our own private underpass under the A4, which then comes out on the other side, which is on the lovely riverside along Hammersmith. So we have our prep school there. We have all our indoor sports facilities there, so a 25-metre swimming pool, big, huge sports hall, 3 studios, a gym, and we've got a couple of courts and so on, and an outdoor space on the rest of the site. So again, I think these London schools are rather like TARDISes because you don't quite know what to expect once you step over the threshold. We're a very big school, including the prep school. We're 440, about 1280 in total in the upper school, 7 through to 18, and we are fully co-ed. So it was originally a boys' school, and it went through various stages where it was grant maintained and so on, and various changes, and then it took girls in the sixth form, and now we're fully co-ed, and that's really well established. There is some more recently converted boys' schools to girls' schools that still feel a little bit like a boys' school, but we feel very much like a fully co-educational school, and that's really, really important. And talking about the Alex mentioned about the sort of origins of the school. We're actually celebrating our 400th anniversary this year, which is fantastic. We were founded in 1624 by Edward Latymer, who was a local businessman and philanthropist. And he bequeathed this pot of money for the education of 8 poor boys. And so we've really taken ourselves back to the heart of that. And that underlies the ethos of the school. Our target for our 400th year was to get to 1 in 4 bursaries, 1 in 4 students being on a bursary in the school. And it's brilliant because we've actually made it. So this September, we will have 1 in 4 of our students coming in will be on a bursary. And we're absolutely thrilled about that because it feels like it chimes with the original ethos of the school. But we're a selective school, highly academic, and
great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, that leads me on to the next point that I'd like to explore. I'm sure lots of parents here have a mental hierarchy of where the London day schools sit in terms of academic attainment. Now, where would you put Latymer on that scale?
So we, I mean, I don't like necessarily going in for those tables and so on, but we are near the top of the scale for the London Day schools. So I would say competitor schools with us on the whole are both the St Paul's schools, King's Wimbledon, Hampton, Godolphin and Latymer, if with the single-sex schools. So they are more kind of in our immediate area that we either, they would be, lots of students would be sitting for both those schools. So it's a very selective school and... Yeah, they're bright kids, smart kids.
Same question to you, Alex.
Yeah, and we've got bright, lovely children at the school, and they're an absolute joy to work with. With us, the results are very, very strong, but the measure that I get most excited about is something called value added. And we do benchmarking for the children when they come in, and it says, we get an indication of what they should achieve at the end. And our value added is really, really very strong, one of the strongest schools in the country for that. So I really, that's something that we feel very proud of, because we take girls who are going to thrive at the school. They're bright buttons, but they've got all sorts of different talents, and it's just an absolute joy to work with them.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, I'm sure there are lots of parents in the audience who are at the beginning of their educational journey and thinking about whether to send their child to a prep school with a view to going to an academic London day school, or whether to go down the state primary route. How important would you each say that first school is in terms of smoothing the pathway into a good secondary school?
I think it's really important that the school you choose for your child is the right school for your child. And ultimately, we want all the children to be happy at school. So if they're at a school where they're happy, they're getting their interests, they're getting their interest nurtured, their curiosity nurtured, and that they're being developed and pulled out and being given opportunities to really stretch and challenge. And those can come from the independent preps brilliantly, and they can also come from some of the fantastic state primaries that send us some amazing children. So I think really it's about the school and the school being right for the child.
Yeah, and how many of your pupils, Sue, come through the preps from either your own prep school or another prep, and how many come from the state-maintained sector, would you say?
So we are a through school, so all our prep children, unless they're relocating, the family are totally relocating, do come up through. So if we take it 7+ in the prep, and they would automatically, they don't have to sit the exam to get into the upper school, which a lot of parents see as a bit of a bonus.
Very good information.
The 11+ stress out the mix.
Yeah.
And we would, the balance is tipped more in taking from prep schools,
right.
But we do look across when we're doing the admissions and we're looking at the exams and the interviews. We would probably have maybe about 40% from primary schools, 30-40% as well.
Okay.
And we also look at that. So when we're looking at where we're selecting people from, because often the children in the prep schools will have had a bit more of a head start over the children in the primary schools. And, that's what prep schools are. They're prepping them for the 11+. So we look kindly on that. And there are some, as Alex says, some brilliant primary schools. I'm chair of governors of one in Shepherd's Bush. It's amazing.
And how you've put your finger right on it when you say that the prep schools really prepare the pupils for entry to selective secondary schools. How can a primary school parent help their child have the best chance of success in those exams?
I think actually you have to be very careful not to over-prepare. We can spot it. And what we want, we have a multi-dimensional applications process. So yes, they have to sit the Consortium 11+, but they also they come to us and they have an interview. They also do a taster lesson. And it's really about making sure that your child can talk and is comfortable talking, and that they're genuinely interested in the things that they say they're interested in, that they're reading or audiobooks or listening and being curious about the world. We want to hear from the child about the child, and we know what a 10-year-old answer feels like and what a 40-year-old answer feels like. It's just really, and the children have absolutely. I had, did an interview this time with a child. I said, "What are you most interested?" Climbing trees, and we had a really interesting conversation. Yeah. And she could tell me all about the different species of trees and things. So there was a whole load of real interest that came out of this. That was definitely a 10-year-old conversation, not a 40-year-old conversation.
That's fantastic. And I've had a couple of parents come to the stand this morning and ask me how important are things like achievement, for example, with a musical instrument or excelling in a sport. When they come for that 11 plus interview, how important are those extracurricular achievements?
For me, it's the willingness to have a go. I mean, the child that is grade 8 on the piano or violin might be being considered for a music scholarship.
Sure.
But equally, the child who says, I've never had the opportunity to learn the violin or piano, I'd love to give it a go here, would be a child that we would be, they're open to
yes.
that. Yeah. And absolutely the same. I mean, we would cater, we have a lot of depth in our sports programme, for example. So we have teams that go right down to F and G teams to give everybody the opportunity, but equally we cater to the elite. So I think it's more, I mean, Alex has used the word curious. I think it's children having that willingness to give it a go, to show an interest in things. So it's not, I wouldn't be battling to get your children up to this level because it would be seen as a way of getting them in.
It's not a point scoring system.
No.
Somehow
but it's about, if someone comes in and says, well, I've just started learning the guitar and I'd like to take my grade 1 next year, that's absolutely fine too, because it's showing that willingness to give things a go.
And I think that's what, when, this session is about what it takes to thrive in an academic school. It is the willingness to give it a go that actually is the difference between those that are really, really going to fly and those who aren't going to enjoy it so much. If you're prepared to give it a go, then you're going to have fun.
And what about the other thing that I've had some parents talk to me about this morning is tutoring to get in. And, I've had some parents talk about tutoring as young as age of 5 and 6 for the 7+. What's your advice to those parents? Both of you.
I'd like to say
don't do it.
Don't do it. Yes.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, sometimes children might find certain mathematical things hard,
absolutely,
and they might need a bit of support there. But I think, as Alex said earlier, you can tell the tutored child.
Yeah.
You can pick them apart, and whereas some of it may help them get through the exam, you'll pick it apart at interview.
Yeah.
It's much more valuable to be having interesting conversations around the dinner table, and to be going off and doing things together as a family on the weekends and introducing them to, our London museums and art galleries are free. You can go in, look at 2 paintings, talk about them, and then go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we want to see being drawn out much more than the head in the books. And the children who are reading is fantastic, and actually really enjoying their literature.
I could not agree more. I mean, we really want the children to be interested and curious, and you can sap the life and love out of learning by over tutoring. There is an argument for you want the child to be confident going into the test, so maybe a little bit of help with maths if that's required, or something. But really, focus on the reading, focus on having interesting conversations. That's much better.
I think that's brilliant advice, and that's the advice we always give as well. So it's great to hear we're all on the same page. I'd like to talk a little bit, just briefly, about the decision that parents have to make between choosing a single-sex school for their child and choosing co-ed. Can you state the case, Alex? For
this is like Sue and I might not be in quite such an agreement. I can. I feel very passionately about girls' schools. In the girls' schools, I feel that Francis Holland, everything about Francis Holland is designed for the girls that we've got. The girls play every instrument, they study every subject, they have every leadership position. There's very little, I just think little things like there's very little makeup and on an own clothes day, they dress up in ridiculous outfits because there's no kind of we give them a space to. I feel we give them a space to be young and to keep being young and to be themselves. I'm a parent of 2 girls, and I made a decision to move from co-ed to single sex for the last senior bit. And my daughter said to me, "Mummy, we just get so much work done now."
Oh, right.
so that was a nice little extra bit of affirmation. But I also think that it has to be the right choice for your child.
Yeah.
And I could have had a very different child and made a decision that co-ed was absolutely right for them. And I feel really, really strongly about that there are amazing schools in London.
Yes.
And the right school, you are parents, you're the ones that know your children best, and whether the co-ed environment is right for them or your girls' environment. But come and see, come and have a look, come and have a feel, see how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, to reinforce what Alex said, that I'm a great advocate of choice, and it is about, there are fantastic girls' schools, boys' schools, co-ed schools. I've got 2 daughters as well, and we chose to send them to Latymer, to my school. Although for my daughter who's in the lower 6, she applied for a 6th form place and got her place before I got the headship, and I then had to break the news to her that I was going to be her head. So that didn't go down so well. No. But she so she would have gone there anyway. I think it is about choice. I mean, I think the one thing I would say about Latymer that I don't know is necessarily true of all co-ed schools is it doesn't play to some of the gender stereotypes. So, for example, we have as many girls doing science and maths as we do boys, for example. And sometimes you don't see that in them all. So it's very unpretentious in that respect. The boys and the girls just kind of, it's reflective of real life. These children are going to go out and they're going to go out into a co-educational world, and they just kind of get along together. And it works for those children, and they still wear silly things on close day.
Good. But I would say go and have a look at the schools and get a feel. Get
you
a
will,
feel
and you'll know your child.
Yeah.
You will know your child and what you think will fit them.
And Sue, your school particularly is right at the top of those league tables. Love them or loathe them. How fast-paced really is it? What does it take for a child to really keep up? I've had a couple of questions this morning from mums and dads sort of saying, do they need to be in the top quartile, the top 10% to really thrive in schools such as this? What would you say to those parents? What's the answer to the how fast-paced really is it?
Yeah, so our school is pretty fast.
Yes,
I would say it is academic, and that is, I always say academic, rounded and grounded, but it is academic, and I wouldn't want a child that was going to struggle in that environment to be there almost, because it is it would just it's not necessarily good for them and they won't necessarily thrive, but yes, if you know that your child is in that top top 10%, I would say,
would you?
Then they would probably absolutely thrive there. But they need to keep pace. It is fast paced, and the ones that will enjoy it most are the ones who don't just have their heads in the book and are doing all the other things as well, and trying things out that they've never done before. So they need to be open-minded about it as well, and not be entirely bookish. But they're smart kids and they enjoy it. Yeah. I asked some year 7s the other day, what's your best bit so far? And most of the hands went up was the lessons. They love them. They love them.
Wonderful.
So,
that's excellent.
And I think with pace, it's not just about being able to keep up in the lessons, which is really, really important. It's also about being able to keep up in the lessons and be able to do the clubs and all the other stuff.
Yes.
Because it is we have so many clubs. I defy anybody, it doesn't matter how old you are, not to find a club that you don't want to do at the school. It is absolutely amazing. But that they're on at lunchtime and they're on after school, and we want the children to be involved in the clubs, because that's what makes them happy, gives them that all-round experience. So you do need to be able to cope with a bit of pace.
Yeah. Thank you. And sometimes we have parents that come to talk to us to let us know that their child they think very clever, but perhaps not naturally inclined towards the library and books as they would like them to be. Do you think that putting a child who is less academically focused in an environment where they're surrounded by other very academically ambitious children can pull them up by the bootstraps, or do you think sometimes it can have the reverse effect and disillusion them a little bit? Alex, do you want to?
Yeah, it depends on the child.
Right.
It really does depend on the child. And, we see every day children, watching other children go and do something and thinking, that's really cool and I want to do that as well. And really feeding off we want to find that special something in every child, and you can't always be the top at absolutely everything. And so having that sort of that real ambition put out in front of you can be really exciting. But you've got to be of a mindset which finds that exciting and wants to be wants to be part of it.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're at the bottom of the pile in a very academic school, and not being able to flourish in that place. But equally, there will be some who aren't so bookish, who are thriving in other areas of school, and they'll still do really well. And they need to remember that they are, they're still academically very able, but they might be a brilliant actor, they might be a brilliant musician, they might be loving their sport, so it really
amazing
depends.
At chess,
it really depends. It really depends on the child.
Okay. And the other thing as well that we're hearing a lot about in the news at the moment is this sort of epidemic of anxiety, particularly with young people. So, in your schools, how competitive is it really, and how can we keep a lid on children's own demands of themselves? Often I think in the past we heard about a lot of pressure coming from parents, but now it feels as though more and more the children are putting a lot of pressure on themselves. It's not even coming from school anymore. So how can we help those children, and how in schools can you stop it escalating to the point where it becomes a real problem?
Yeah, it's interesting because we run a survey on our students, various pastoral check-in surveys, and they will always say that if you look at the bars for who's putting the pressure on, it's myself.
Yes.
That's literally that bar, myself, is right out there. And, it's not teachers, it's not parents so much. But we would always say to them, so for example, a school like ours, we don't give rankings or averages and things like that. We say, you're all really bright, you've all got into this school, so stop comparing yourself to each other. So there's kind of things that we can do there. And there's obviously support networks, when people are feeling a little bit fragile. But I think the key thing is just sort of trying to find different things that different children shine in, but also not giving them markers which allow them to compare as well. That's quite key.
I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said comparison is the thief of joy, and I do say that quite a lot to the girls. It is really unhelpful if they do that, but also sometimes they get the kind of the more and more I study, the better I'm going to be, and so I kind of work myself up into frenzy. And actually, the research shows that that's completely not the case. That actually, you might think you're reading for pleasure, but your grades will go up the more you read because of what it does to your brain, and actually the new vocabulary you're being exposed to, and the new ideas you're being exposed to. So I think it's really about sort of teaching children that actually, the best way forward isn't necessarily, to whip themselves in quite that way.
Yeah, and when things do go wrong, as they inevitably do in any school, how do you pick children up from those sort of dark places if they find themselves there? What processes are in place in each of your schools to do that?
I could be here all afternoon talking about processes, and I'm sure Sue, there's not just one way of doing it. It's really important to have a really multifaceted approach. So we have really highly trained staff in all sorts of different areas. So we have, the office staff at the front door will look at children as they come in, or if they're coming in a bit late. I hear them, my office is next to the front door going, why are you late this morning? Is everything okay? And, just doing those kind of check-ins and they know the names of the children coming in. And then you've got the form tutors, you've got the teachers, you've got the sort of the pastoral team, but we get kind of notifications you get from the dining room staff. So I thought so-and-so came in on their own and looked a bit sad today. So, you've got lots of people who are looking out. You've got sick formers that are sort of working sometimes with some of the younger years. They might know something. Sometimes other children in the form will notice something and flag something that people need support. We do have a dedicated in-house counselling team as well for when things get a bit more sort of serious, need a bit more intense help. And we've actually got a therapy dog as well.
Oh, lovely.
Nice. Nice to have a dog on site. But I would say it's about the whole culture of the school and about really knowing the children so that we can pick them up when we need to.
Excellent, thank you. Anything to add to that?
Not particularly. No, if therapy dogs and all, we do. We should. It's very, very similar sort of networks. Yeah,
excellent. That's really good to hear. Now, moving on to a slightly different subject, I think there's a lot of questions that parents want to ask about how to determine if their child should apply for a certain school. How do they know whether their child is going to be successful at interview in the exam, etc. How do we know?
One person I would definitely listen to is the child's head.
Yeah.
Of their primary or
prep school.
Yeah.
Because in the same way that we might say to a child, you are not it might be hard to hear, but you're not Oxbridge material. Some parents will say, well, it doesn't matter. And some students will say, well, I'm still going to apply. But actually that just puts additional pressure on them if there's sort of, if in our professional opinion, they're very unlikely to be awarded a place. So listen to what the school is saying to you. I really, really think that's important. And if a head is saying to you, or if their form tutor is saying, I just don't think the heads are probably the best place. They know the children. They've seen them year after year. They know which children get into which schools because so they're a really good marker and they will say I think your child is best suited to these schools and your child is best suited to these. So I would definitely listen to the head, but sort of general advice, that's one person to talk to, but go to the open days, evenings, get a flavour for the school, ask the right questions. But again, I would say don't put your child under too much pressure of sitting too many exams, and maybe we'll go on to that. But I would just say there's a limit to how many exams they should sit.
Yeah, interestingly, that was going to be my next question. A lot of London parents particularly want their child to take up to 5 or sometimes 1 or 2 more exams. What do you think is the optimum number, Alex?
I would say 3 or 4 really, And I had one parent who told me sort of very happily that this poor child was doing 14 last year, and I said to him, I think that's cruel, and I think that's really not the right thing to be doing. There will be a place, there will be a school for your child. I think it's really, it doesn't feel like that at the time, but there will be, these children are only 10. So,
be kind to them.
Be kind.
I would 100% agree with that.
Have one that's,
an insurance choice.
The insurance in the same way that we do with the university. They have, they have the one that they really want to go to, and then they have their backup. There's no point in having them both at the same offer grade.
We always say to parents, it's great to be ambitious for your child. But also have a realistic target and then have an insurance choice that you would be happy to accept. And I think that feels quite a sensible approach. Now, what if your child is bright but they have special educational needs, what kind of questions would you be asking to their senior school? What should parents be looking for?
Well, it depends what the needs are, but I mean we really welcome children who've got diverse ways of thinking and diverse ways of going about their lives. I mean, they add the absolute richness and the creativity and everything that we want in school. So I think the important thing is we've got an amazing learning strategies department, and they're very, very happy to take sort of phone calls and questions from people. So, you know, every child is different. So come and talk to us. Come meet us at an open day. You know, meet the learning strategies team and have a feel as if you think, you know, is this the right sort of environment for my child?
Yeah, and likewise, you know, we've got huge support for our neurodiverse students. But one thing I would say to parents looking to come in, be upfront about it.
Thanks for saying.
Because we need to know. Honestly, it doesn't make it doesn't make any difference at all. We just need to know what the needs are right at the beginning, and it's much more helpful if when you're coming around on the open day, you're talking to us about a child's needs, whether it's neurodiversity, whether they've got an educational healthcare plan or whatever. That's really, really key. We just need to know up front, rather than we do sometimes see parents hiding it because they think it will act against them, and then suddenly we're kind of
I completely agree, and actually you're disadvantaging the child through the process if you haven't flagged that early. And if we get the information later, it is a bit of a trust issue as well. You know,
Interesting.
It is something you think, oh, you know, what is there something that I haven't seen here that I don't know?
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Thank you.
And I
Thank
think
you
actually
both.
at secondary level schools are very good at spotting neurodiversity as well. So you do see, particularly in boys, you'll sometimes see levels of ADHD and so on escalating around 14, 15 as well. And the schools, you know, they're really good at spotting that and offering the support that's needed.
Excellent, thank you. And also, parents often ask us, how do I know if my child is going to be successful in a scholarship application? How does the parent make that decision whether to put their child forward for that or not?
I think, again, to have a look at the information. Each school's got different information about the scholarships. You know, some school we offer a ballet scholarship. I don't think.
Gosh.
You know, yes, it's not quite an unusual one. But I think, you know, and have a look. You know, art scholarships. I mean, art comes in so many different forms. But what sort of thing are they looking for in that art scholarship? And, you know, if it's a drawing test that's part of the package, then, you know, is that going to be something that's going to work for my child? So I think you need to have a look at the processes and things for it, because each one will be slightly different. And then make contact with the school and ask questions. I think that's really key. We're always open to questions.
Yeah, I think it's... Sorry, Sue.
No, I was just going to say find out from the school, but also we don't offer academic scholarships. We offer more on the co-curricular side. But if you are looking for an academic scholarship in a school, just be mindful of, you know, going back to how many exams they're sitting, how many schools they're sitting for, because that is an additional pressure if they are sitting the scholarship for a school. So, you know, if they're in that bracket, they're probably going to be getting into the school that they want to be going into if their school is saying, go for the scholarship. So don't kind of put them through masses and masses. Do you know, think which ones do we really want to get them into?
Yeah, that's great advice. And I love the advice as well that you gave about talking to the admissions department, because I think sometimes there's a real barrier, an invisible barrier between parents and admissions, but actually... you know, they really can pick up the phone and speak to people and ask their advice and ask them all the questions, can't they? So
100%.
that's brilliant. That's been hugely insightful. Thank you both. I think we'll open the floor to questions now, if that's okay.
If your child is academic, shy, just put his hands up and around, does that child get left behind because they're not obviously they're obviously shy?
I really don't think so. We have, you know, certainly in the interview process, we interview one-to-one, and so we're very good at coaxing and getting shy children to talk. And the teachers, you know, we've got huge extroverts, but we've got introverts as well. And yes, we want people to make sure that they feel comfortable asking questions, but there's different ways. You don't have to necessarily be the one putting your hand up. We've got other ways to make sure that you're participating in the class. So no, not everybody has to be a sort of raging extrovert to survive and thrive. Absolutely, we want some shy ones as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, likewise, if I look at our children, they all just find their different places.
They find their tribe, they find their friends.
Whole range of children. And equally, you see some who come in really shy, and then the next thing you know, there they are on the stage giving it a go, and they found something that they never thought they'd be able to do. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Someone else?
Hi, you talked a little bit about what happens when the child already in your school is going through a tough time and people, staff are noticing and they get help. As your child is going through this process of putting themselves out there for different schools and scholarships and different things like that, do you have any advice as parents for how to help navigate maybe some disappointments that come, or if they're feeling challenging on practice tests and different things like that? Do you have any advice for us on how we might navigate a child who may put that pressure on themselves? Like, as a parent, you know that your daughter would be that bar over here. What you do to kind of help them not say, oh, I did it wrong once. And you try and encourage them, it's okay. But is there any other steps you would advise?
Yeah, I would say just make sure that they feel that they're being really successful, and that there's lots of things that they're feeling really successful in at the same time, so it doesn't become this overwhelming feeling of I've had both my daughters going through a sort of similar process to all of this. It's making sure you're being completely sort of realistic and confident with them. It's about having that choice in there, as you talked about yes, you might have an aspirational couple of choices and you might have things, but also having something that you're happy with, and so you can just take that pressure off. If they feel that you're neurotic about it, they will be neurotic about it. They're very good mirrors. But if they feel that you're calm, like, yeah, don't worry, come on, don't get too worked up about this, then hopefully they can absorb some of that
keeping
too.
it in perspective, and as long as they feel, did they give it their best shot? They gave it their best shot. I have learned to listen to my daughter, who's now in year 10, rant. Because she finds that very therapeutic, and she doesn't want me to come back and go, oh, stop being silly or whatever. She just wants to rant, and anyway, I've kind of got there now. I've worked out that that's what she likes. It's just kind of letting it all out like that, and also take them out of themselves. So if they are putting themselves under all this pressure, say, come on, we're going to, this is what we're going to go. I've booked to go to the cinema down the road. Let's go and watch, and I just think sometimes just kind of taking them out of that zone when it becomes all consuming is really important. Yeah.
And also I think learning that failure, not a very nice word, but it's a really important part of life, and learning how to do it and pick yourself up afterwards is part and parcel of life. And if they do get into all their schools, then they may not get into all their universities, and in a way, or they're certainly not going to get every job they apply for as an adult, are they?
No.
So
absolutely,
it's important to learn from things like that as well, isn't it? And learn the strategies to cope with it and pick yourself up afterwards.
100%. Yeah.
Anyone else? There's a lady at the back there.
Thank you. There are a few behaviors that I think we most live with, which might now fall into the spectrum or might have a label. While manageable every day, is it really worth diagnosis, a letter? Does it make a difference in the exam? Could it work against the children in terms of if they are looked at in a different group?
In terms of having some
neurodiversity, perhaps.
No, it's just as we said, we need to know. And at my school, anybody who's got a profile which indicates some additional needs, they're interviewed by the head of the Learning Strategies Department, so that somebody who's an expert in that area. And they're very good at saying, at the end of the day, this child she's going to do really well here. I can really see that she's going to do really well. Or actually, I don't think this child is going to do so well. But ultimately, people don't go into teaching because people go into teaching they tend to be kind people, and I do think that if I look at our teachers who do the interview, we're a pretty decent bunch, and we're looking for for in my case the girls or the girls and boys to do well and to bring what they can bring out of them, and it's gentle. So please, just if you've got a child who's got some additional needs, just be honest with us about them, and that allows us to support them in the process.
That's great advice. Thank you. I think we've got time for one more very quick question before we finish. The lady down here in the front. If there's any more questions after this, I'm sure that we can pick up afterwards if you come to see us.
Hi, I'm wondering how important it is to do really well in the exam versus the interview. I am thinking about like a 10-year-old taking an exam, and it may be not a great day.
Yeah.
And I haven't been into the system, so I'm asking.
Yeah. So there's huge numbers of there's lots and lots of inputs that go into the whole thinking process. And certainly I'll speak for myself, and Sue will speak this. But the exam is just one part. There is the interview, and in the interview we do a creative task as well. So that's something that we're looking at their thinking within that creative task and how they can talk to us about what they're thinking. We do a lesson, so they have a masterclass lesson as part of that, and they also have a reference from the school, and I sat down and I read every single reference that's coming in, so please don't think it's all over if they have a not so good day on the exam. It really isn't. It's a much more holistic approach.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the school you're applying to. So the exam at Latymer is our own exam. There's some exams. Are you part of the consortium? Yeah. So we have our own exam, but we would only take about a third of those who sit the exam through to interview. So if you like, the way you need to get over that hurdle to then get the interview and shine. But when we look at the exam results, we look at all sorts of different profiles. So you'll get the children who do well across the board, but you'll also get some very skewed profiles. So you get some brilliant mathematicians who are not so good on the English side. And then, so we look at everything in the round, bring in, as Alex says, the teachers' references. Yeah. We look at are there any learning support needs? We look at, whether they've come from prep or primary. So there's a whole mix of things that go into it. We were talking earlier with some parents about tutoring and so on. The maths, we mentioned, the maths might be something that you want to make sure is secure. But, with other stuff, I think it's, as I say, with us, it would be about a third who go through to interview, and then it's much more open.
Wonderful. I think that's all we've got time for, actually. So, Alex and Sue, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.